Hey, welcome to the Past Passport. We don't just check into new cities, we check into history. Here we dig deeper, past the postcard views, past the myths, into the real stories of how cities shape the world, not just through culture, but through cash flow. Because if you want to understand power, follow the money. We tell the stories of places that moved goods, minted wealth, and made decisions that still echo in your bank account today. Silk, silver, salt, credit, the invisible wires of history ran through these places. So if you've ever stood in an old city and wondered, how did this place even exist? You're in the right spot. Today we're heading into the heart of the Sahara, to a place most people only know as a metaphor, but it was very real, and for centuries it held more gold, more knowledge, and more economic clout than almost anywhere on Earth. Let's go to Timbuktu. It sits on the edge of the desert, sand on all sides, blistering heat, winds that shift whole dunes overnight. It looks like a place where nothing should survive. But once upon a time, Timbuktu didn't just survive. It thrived. It ruled. It turned salt into gold and knowledge into power. For centuries, this dusty Saharan city was a global hub for two of the most valuable things in the world: wealth and wisdom. And the story of how it happened is one of the wildest, least understood economic success stories in human history. Origins. Why build a city in the middle of nowhere? Let's start with the obvious question. Why would anyone build a city here? The answer: location and leverage. Timbuktu sits right where the Niger River curls closest to the desert, a natural crossroads between the West African savanna and the trans-Saharan trade routes. Goods from sub-Saharan Africa could be ferried up the Niger by boat. Goods from North Africa, Europe, and the Middle East crossed the desert on camelback. And Timbuktu? Timbuktu was the switchboard. By the 12th century, this little desert outpost had grown into a booming market town. Camel caravans rolled in loaded with salt from the Sahara, cloth from Morocco, books from Cairo. Boats came upriver bringing kola nuts, ivory, and most importantly, gold. Gold was West Africa's superpower. The region produced nearly 2/3 of the world's gold supply at the time, and it passed through Timbuktu. That meant taxes, that meant trade, that meant kings. The city became a magnet for power. Golden Age, salt, gold, and the economics of the mind. In the 14th century, the Mali Empire was rising fast, and with it, Timbuktu. The empire's rulers understood something critical. Controlling trade was more powerful than controlling territory. They didn't need a massive army. They had something better: economic gravity. And few rulers understood that better than the man who made Timbuktu world famous, Mansa Musa. He wasn't just a king, he was the king. When he made his pilgrimage to Mecca in 1324, he brought with him so much gold that he wrecked entire economies along the way. In Cairo, the value of gold dropped and didn't recover for years. His reputation spread across Europe and the Islamic world like wildfire. But here's the key. Mansa Musa's wealth wasn't hoarded. He invested it. He built mosques, libraries, schools. He brought architects and scholars back to Mali. And most importantly, he turned Timbuktu into the intellectual capital of West Africa. This is where it gets fascinating. Timbuktu didn't just trade things, it traded ideas. At its peak, the city had dozens of schools and universities, including the legendary Sankoré University, which drew students from across Africa and the Middle East. It housed tens of thousands of manuscripts: astronomy, law, medicine, theology, poetry, mathematics, all hand-copied, all part of a living academic economy. These weren't just dusty scrolls, they were currency. Owning manuscripts was a sign of status. Lending them out? A source of profit. Scholars earned money, teaching, debating, copying, preserving. Knowledge wasn't just free, it was valuable. Imagine that. A desert city where books were worth more than bricks of gold. And the trade system, it was tight. Caravans would carry salt north to the Mediterranean, where it was vital for preserving food. That salt would be traded for cloth, beads, weapons. Everything flowed back to Timbuktu, where it was sold or taxed, then funneled back through the empire: gold for salt, salt for goods, goods for influence, influence for knowledge. It was an entire looping economy with Timbuktu as its neural center, conflict and decline when the world changed. But no hub stays central forever. By the 15th century, Timbuktu was still thriving, but cracks were showing. New powers rose. The Songhai Empire absorbed Timbuktu, and though it kept the city alive, shifts in leadership brought instability. More importantly, the world itself was shifting. By the late 1400s, Portuguese ships had found their way around the African coast. They could now trade directly with coastal regions, bypassing the long, risky desert routes. Europe didn't need to wait on camel caravans anymore. Sea trade was faster, cheaper, safer. The trans-Saharan routes? Slowly, painfully, they dried up. And when the money slows, so does the power. In 1591, Moroccan forces invaded Timbuktu, hoping to seize control of the gold trade. But they were too late. The empire had already weakened. The city's economy was shrinking. Many of the scholars and scribes fled, others were taken prisoner. The manuscripts survived, hidden away, but the city's status didn't. Over the next centuries, Timbuktu became more of a legend than a player. European explorers treated it like a lost city, a rumor in the sand, a place too rich to be real. The truth was far more interesting. Modern echoes. What Timbuktu still teaches us. Timbuktu still exists. It's smaller, quieter. It faces real struggles, conflict, climate change, extremist threats. But the soul of the city, it's not gone. Thousands of manuscripts still survive, in basements, in boxes, in the hands of families who've protected them for generations. Efforts are underway to preserve and digitize them, because those texts are not just academic artifacts, they're receipts, proof, a paper trail of a city that once made kings rich and scholars powerful. And the story of Timbuktu still teaches us something that modern economies are just now learning again. Information is capital, before stock markets, before central banks. Timbuktu built a system where knowledge generated value, where books could be banked on, where people traveled across deserts, not just for gold, but for ideas. It also reminds us that power isn't always where we expect it to be, not in the biggest armies or tallest buildings, but sometimes at the quiet edge of the world, in a library, in a ledger, in a city of sand. If you ever find yourself looking at a map and see Timbuktu sitting there near the Sahara, don't let the distance fool you. That city once moved the world, and it's proof that even the most unlikely places can shape history if they understand how to trade in the right currency: gold, salt, knowledge. Thanks for exploring with us. If you like this story, hit subscribe and let us know what city we should decode next. Because here at the Past Passport, we believe the past doesn't just live in books, it lives in balance sheets, marketplaces, and minds. And we're just getting started.